So hey everybody. So we're back. Thursday already. Can't believe it. Time is just it's funny how you think that you have so much time and then I don't know how it is for you guys, but it seems as if time just flies by every day. And I think part of it is that I'm trying to keep up on the newest of the new on the news. Um, so while I'm getting started here, I'm just running a few minutes behind. So I wanted to talk to you guys just a minute. I'm putting on some music, and we talked a bit yesterday about how art is an expression or a language all of its own, and every artist is going to have his or her own language. And it's just the same with people, right? When we're communicating, that we have our own language, we have our way of talking, and obviously there's lots of problems with miscommunication. So sometimes people might intend one thing and then they end up being misunderstood, or their intentions are certainly misunderstood. And the same is true for musicians and other performing artists, as well as for, I don't want to capitalize on the whole thing right now with decisions and who's making better decisions in the world and who's making worse decisions, whatever. This is a time right now, this hour of art class is about taking time to really just settle into just being relaxed, focused, tuning into your own intuition, your own way of doing things. So I'm not going to ever pressure anybody unless they really have a desire to learn specifically a skill that I can help them learn, and I will definitely can do that. So we talked about the rigors, the practice. There we go. Get some music going of making gestural forms, which are kind of messy and sloppy, and the way I was taught in my college drawing classes to move from loose, like these contour drawings, where you look at the object without looking at your paper, and just accustom yourself to that work of really attending to the tiniest detail, and then going into the gesture drawings, and then we worked from there to looking at geometry and shape, and then yesterday we were working a bit more on more detail and composition and talking about light and contrast and how to bring out form. So today, because it's already Thursday, I'm gonna just jump ahead, and if you guys have any other questions about how to move your drawings, so I was inviting you to, if you wanted to make your own still lives or work from the picture that I had posted below, that if you want to ask any specific questions, just go ahead and post in the comments section. It's funny though, sometimes it seems like I'm able to see that and other times I'm really not. So I don't know, Facebook has good things, and like allowing this to be broadcast free, really, from the comfort of my at-home studio. So that's pretty awesome. But then there's other things that just techniques and challenges with the virtual visual platform that I haven't perfected, just partly because I'm not that practiced at it. So anyway, so we're working on still lives today. Yes, last week we moved from the idea of the butterfly to I'll just whip around here real quickly again. Just as a quick reminder, we worked on adding colors, so that's where we are. Oh yeah, you can see all my stick figures. I was drawing. When I tell people that I'm an artist, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not an artist. I can't even draw a stick figure." So that kind of, I thought I would just play with the idea of making stick figures out of wire and see if I could make stick figures. I was just probably bored one day in the studio. You know, it's funny in the studio that there's all kinds of lessons to be learned, and one of those is that it's okay to daydream. So I was also thinking at one point that it would be fun to make an actual artist license that you could carry with you in your wallet or your purse. It would say, "Oh no, this is fine. I have the right to do this. I'm an artist." If you guys are at all curious about how to find out more about me or what I'm doing, there's sort of a angular, let's see, I'll turn the phone. See, like that. If I were a more left-brained person, I would have all of this so greatly orchestrated. All right, so let's get going here. Enough of this chit-chat. Got our music going, and so as you can see where I started to add some color, and we'll get going here. Let me make sure I've got my sound quality set. I'm also going to see if I can just pull this up on Facebook so that maybe I'll be able to see some of your questions a little more quickly. So right now I'm not able to see them till after class. I had one person who was posting after class yesterday, and I encouraged her to go ahead and post her drawing, and I loved what she created. And this hour is specifically just about having a relaxed time, learning some skills, or if you're already an artist, just polishing some of those skills. And then also on Friday evenings at 5, I have a second group that's called Art, Tech, and Innovation. And in that group, there's what I'm calling an art salon, where creatives from all over the world can meet, and it's like a BYOB, or bring your own, food or snacks, and join us on Zoom. And I'll post a link to that. Again, just another, while we're all under these interesting, new life experience of being in quarantine or at stay-at-home rules. Just a way to socialize with other creative people. So, all right. And I'm located more specifically just north of the Boston area. So, yesterday I did this, I removed that object from my drawing, which I'll put right back there. But it was kind of annoying me. So when we go to add color, the point here is to understand that color is really just a refraction of the way light hits an object. And there's many, many, many underlying colors. So I'm not going to go into color theory and all these things. It's very complicated. But as you know, if you've studied any of the masters of painting and oils or acrylics or pastel works, you know, or watercolors, others too. You could use, by the way, at home, if you're at home, you can use crayons or markers, or whatever you have available, as we start adding color to our drawings. So, you know that then some of the masters would first wash their canvas in a light color of some sort. And that may just be a pale or a translucent white. For younger viewers who might be tuning in, you can have that be the word of the day, translucent. You can see if you can do some research on what that word means and how that works on the paper. And so because we were talking about contrast mostly yesterday, then this is about the gradation of not only dark to light, and I'll show you here how I did that with the stone, but then also the addition of color. And because this is really ostensibly just a practice class, so some cases I'm not adhering to my own rules, particularly sometimes I'll break my own rules, but just teaching and leaning towards, or I love that word, like leaning into a new idea or a new way of doing things. So that means to me that there's also room for adjustments. So, so as we talked about before then, like defining that, just that small grouping of stones, for example, I took this lighter stone, triangular shaped stone with the demarcations or the melding of that incredible geologic process that took place that created almost a perfect circle right there on the rounded point of, you know, this soft triangle, and then kind of a darker gray and brown mottled looking stone. And then I saw, and I'll show you on my drawing real quickly, the mottled, you see how there was like some breaks at the base of the vase. I've not treated that yet, but just sketched out the color. And then again with the pony, as I move over here, let me show you on my drawing how then I started to translate some of the contrasts between the pencil line and the pencil work. If you remember, like the hatch marks that we talked about yesterday. And starting then also to make some circular motions with the pencil to really start accentuating where there's darker forms of contrast coming in across those stones. And then myself, I just went ahead as a shortcut. Now I might not do this if I was doing this just on my own, but just for the sake of this class, I went ahead and added red over the top of the shading material. Now again, I wouldn't necessarily always do that, but I did do that today. That's and the same here, where I'm now picking up some of the red of the tablecloth and then also getting involved with adding a little bit of color and maintaining that sort of red. It's more like a visual reminder for me. It's more about just maintaining kind of a note-taking aspect to this. So now the question is where to start for this class today, and what should I go ahead and start filling in detail on my vase, or do you want me to work on the horse? Do you guys have any preferences? Okay, so I think what I'll do is start with the horse. And when I scan quickly back over to the horse, and mostly I'm going to focus the camera on the drawing itself today. So again, I invite you, if you have not yet, just take a screenshot of that little bronze statuette of a pony or a colt. Got it? And then I'm going to just work, while I'm holding the phone, I'm just going to work on this horse while you guys watch, and I'll kind of talk our way through what I'm going to do here. And right now, again, I'm just going to focus on the object rather than work on the wash of the red, because all of the reds that I have in my home studio, I did order some red, but I'll show you. I've got like some really dark red, and what I would like is some watercolor or a broad, more of, a marker with a broader tip. So anyhow, I'm not going to do that right now. So just making do with what I have. So this may seem like a funny color to start with, but this is a pale blue. So what I'm doing is imagining, as I remember back to the color wheel, and again, you guys can Google color wheel to find lots and lots of examples of different color wheels. And I'm also just going to use a very soft eraser so it doesn't tear the paper. So I'm not going to use the eraser on my number 2 pencil for this, because it might scratch or otherwise cause distress to the paper. So I'm not going to erase every line completely. What I'm doing is just, because I use some of those darker pencils to exemplify the creation of shadow and dark. So I'm just going to lighten some of that demonstration line, and just okay. Let me just do that again with the face here. Just take. It's okay with these. I don't apply a lot of pressure, but I do work in that circular motion. Again, just so that I'm not scratching the paper. And I am going to leave a bit of just a light pencil line there. And maybe you guys have a different style, just my style. So, okay, so I've kind of lightened that up a little bit. So now I'm going to come back, and you can see that I've already, yesterday after class, I went ahead and just put in some notes for myself of where I was seeing shadow. Let me come back around here and I'll show you what those marks are about. So here on my form, this little colt, this little bronze statuette, you can see there's a dark line there, some of the shadows falling on that back part of the right front leg, and then also back here on the back left leg, and then up here on the kind of the haunches and behind the ear, and of course under the neck. And these are the things where there's shadow is contrasted with light that really will make that form bounce off the paper. So you'll see as I move over here to the belly that I really put a lot of hatch marks with a kind of a light green color on the paper. Okay, hope that's making sense, and let me know if you have questions again. So now this is blue, but I am going to go ahead and I'm going to take the entire colt and underlie. I'm going to go over the areas that I put that green in yesterday. And you'll see as we built up the colors on the butterfly last week, how these colors will blend, and especially if you're using watercolor or marker like I'm using, or colored pencil. I was going to say watercolor pencil, which is totally fine also. Just creating some kind of open hash marks, and again just following the line of the front part of that left leg, filling in a little more of a dense coloration on the, what would be the, kind of the, let's see how the horse has his leg tilted a little bit back here. And for this also, I'm not going for the perfect drawing right now, since I'm just teaching kind of the basic rules of drawing. So if I were working on this studiously, I would definitely be taking more time and having in quotes, a more elegant outcome or something. Okay, so now what I've done is put in an underlayment of the light blue-green color. So I'm going to replace that in my little marker. I'll show you guys how I'm working on like a pincushion of markers here. It's just a open saucer, a ceramic saucer filled with white sand, so I could see all my markers. Okay, and again, each to their own when it comes to that. So now, what I really would like, and again, this is just my preference, I am going to go ahead and bring in a light blue. I'm also, sometimes I will test at the far corner of a paper to make sure either whether I'm using pencil or oil or acrylic or ink just kind of test it, make sure it's the right color. And this is, again, the stay-at-home variety. Here I am, I'm just pulling on what I have. So this is just a Crayola. It's kind of fun, really, when you look at artists from throughout time and how they really just made use of the materials that they had on hand. And there's lots and lots of stories of that, of artists. Even, I don't know if you know or have read some of the letters of Van Gogh where he would run out of supplies and write to his brother and ask his brother for, if he could just please send some supplies his way. So it's just one example, but artists have a long history. Even, indigenous cultures found very creative ways of expressing themselves in their pottery. So they're definitely mixing function and art, and oftentimes also storytelling in the vases. And I have a dear friend who's very dear to me who collects African art, and he's collected art for quite a long time, and he loves the history and the research and how the design work. To us it might look like design, but to those cultures it was really a way of communicating. The story of kings and leadership and wars, abundance, great years of celebration. Okay, so what I'm doing now, just to talk to you through this, is I'm taking that darker blue and using that as a way. You saw how I was making kind of almost a staccato, like little pointillism. Just totally my artist choice here, just being creative. And all of this is going to become a wash. So those details, the line work, all of that is about to disappear. So this right now is about accentuating contrast of dark and light in order to bring this object out into 3 dimensions. And let me just show you again, and I don't mean to revisit this too often, but this is example that we worked on last week, right? So this is the butterfly. So the same process as an artist of just making a decision about how to lay color out. And here, of course, we started out with a pale yellow and then worked our way up the color spectrum. In some cases, and I'll zoom in, on the body, even using purple. And that wasn't just sort of a suggested idea, but as we were zooming in on this photograph of the butterfly, I could see more how there was subtleties of purple and iridescent violet in the body of what looked like a black body. But when we were actually examining the butterfly more closely, we could see more of those subtleties. And same with the flowers here, that they're highlights that I left white. Even with the leaves itself, we've explored quite a bit in these classes how the mind just fills in the blanks for you. So at a distance, just like when you're, having the treat of visiting an original piece of work in a gallery or a museum, and you look at it from afar in a distance, and then you really zoom in, you can actually see some of the artist's handwork with the brush. In this case, I just use marker or whatever. But it doesn't I mean, again, these are just classes on kind of using materials that I have in the in my home studio, so it's just what that turned out to be. So let's go back to the pony, and here we are. And so I am just using these collections of color that are going to complement one another, hopefully. That's the plan anyway. And bring out some of the variances, so that's not just like we could say, oh, that's a copper, green, bronze cast of a little pony, right? We know that is true. So we give it all these sort of categories and names. But as we really start looking in on this horse, we're seeing different kinds of detail work, like the way that the artist chose to create that ear. It's darker, right? Kind of a darker bronze color than the rest of the face, except the nose and the eye. And even under the eye, there's a small triangle. And right on the upper shoulder, there's some etching marks right on that, on the front left leg. So I'm going to go back over here to what's becoming our sketch, and I'm just going to use my pencil again, just kind of as a reminder of where that eye is, so I don't forget. And then the ear, I'm just going to do artists. I'm going to just change a little bit of how I laid that ear out. We're going to just lay that back a little bit more. This is a good time to make some subtle adjustments. Again, this is just my approach, so you guys, you may be completely ahead of the curve as far as I'm concerned. But if you do have questions, let me know. And okay, so I'm going to go ahead and it's actually kind of funny because the artist himself or herself, I don't know who created that little bronze, had their own interpretation. So what I'd like now is to add a light brown color. I could find it. Let me see. That kind of will blend or work with the overall scheme of this. Sorry. So I found a red. That may be good if I'm going to work on doing some shadowing on the tablecloth itself. So I'm going to put that aside. And an orange, which I think is too dark. Just talking out loud here for a minute. I did have some dark brown. And so what do you guys do when you can't find exactly that right color that you're looking for? So we're going to try, this is again a little bit dark for what I've purposes. Right now, if I could, just to capture some of the copper, this is a little bit darker than I prefer, but I'm going to go, I don't know. Do you remember that part on the upper shoulder that we talked about? I go ahead and add a little bit of that. And the ear. ahead and just add a little there. Eye, the nose, and there's a little bit of line work out of the jaw. So I'm not going to go overboard with this brown. So again, I'm just going to do some light, just bringing, I'm going to work a little bit in a, circular. Now I'm covering up all of those underlying colors and really capturing the dark part of that underbelly. So let's see here. I'm actually going to go ahead and really commit to that on that. And we're going to do some more blending so that, we're going to do some more blending between those two palettes. Don't ask me how yet. I don't know. I have to figure it out. Actually, artwork is a lot like practice makes perfect. But you have to make some mistakes. And sometimes mistakes can be painful, right? Like it can really botch up a drawing. But that's where the courage to be an artist comes in, because you know that you're likely to make quote unquote a mistake. But then you do more research, more practice, and then the next time it's a little bit better. So just imagine that, like, probably I've made 1,000 drawings over my life. I don't know. But here I am. I'm still trying to work out the complexities of this new object and still trying to sort it out. Okay, here's another challenge. How do I take this form in the limited markers that I have at my disposal and pick up some of these features without overwhelming that beautiful, beautiful coppery bronze patina that little colt has. So that's the challenge that you're catching me at right now. I wonder how your drawings are coming. Did you figure out a solution? Or maybe are you working on a different part of this drawing? I posted the still life online yesterday, so if you scroll down, you can definitely go back and review the drawing itself. And so this is a point where if this was a work of art that I was really, really, really committed to, and I was struggling with it, this is a point where I would take a break. I would go call a friend, make some tea, run an errand, just kind of let myself ponder it. What I might do, let me see here, sorry. I'm bouncing all over the place, my apologies. Still kind of looking just to see. I thought that I had a beautiful green. Aha! I think I found something that might work. So while I've been stuck at home, I did order online some markers, Decocolor. And this has a broad line, so it could be kind of risky, but I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. And let me, for those of you guys who are just joining in, this is what the object of the day that I'm focused on. I'd posted earlier in yesterday's class, the day before, so we're on day number 4 of a still life. And I did some work on the vase. I'm not sure if I'll have time to get super focused on that today during class, but I'll be adding color to that this afternoon, and then hopefully reposting kind of a drawing for tomorrow. So again, I'm going to try this. I'm going to first come down here and just make sure. So that's pretty dark. And also, I don't want to create more line work. So what I'm going to do is use the side of this marker rather than the tip of it. And just see if I can get that to kind of blend in some of the other colors that we're doing this underlayment. Are you guys able to follow along with that? So if you're working at home and you're working with crayons or markers or watercolor, this will be a good practice for you to begin to mix your colors. And definitely not the perfect materials, but this is sort of the stay-at-home model of just trying to blend using things that work. And what a good metaphor for where we are in the world right now, too, is all of us trying to sort out the best way to make things work just with the resources that we have. It seems to be a part of the way of things. Okay, so I'm gonna pause there for a minute. And the other thing that I tend to do as an artist is take a moment, take a look at what I'm doing so that I can get a sense of it. And now, okay, so let me scan back over to the pony for a minute. And so this is the maquette. This is what I'm working on. So now I'm going to go back, you guys, just as a suggestion, and blend and I do wish I had better markers to really exhibit this better. I'm sorry that I don't. Or even watercolors or pastels are amazing to help soften the blending of these colors. So we're genuinely just working with what we have. And so now I'm going to working in a circular motion to just pull in and blend that light blue into the whole horse, so it looks like, instead of looking like small bits of color, we're going to just use this miracle marker to pull those colors in. So it'll be more homogenized on our, like I was saying earlier, our mind is going to help blend those colors when we pull a little bit away from it. I'll show you that in a minute. And we're so sorry for all the people who are going through so much challenge out in the world, really taking to heart with great gratitude that we have this time and space right now. So just sending out hope people are doing okay, or that they are in a good place. I hope so. Okay, so we're starting to kind of identify a little bit more form and color with that pony. And there's parts of it that I could see that aren't actually syncing up with the real drawing, so I'm going to give myself permission to round out that little corner and make it a little more of a curve. What else am I noticing? I'm noticing that this leg needs a little more. Now again, I'm just drawing a horse based on another artist's interpretation of a horse. It's that's always fun. It's like, oh, that's how that artist chose to do that. May not be what I would have, so whatever, it's fine. We're just tracking. Okay, so I'm going to move over now. I'm just going to let that be our pony for the moment. And then again, when I come back, do you see how the feet kind of dipped down? So I'm going to use my red marker eventually to show the wash of the tablecloth. So where that occurred, I wasn't too concerned about it because that'll become part of our. This is again just a note. This is where the tablecloth is, and I'll come back with a bigger kind of a broader wash with a larger marker and fill in some of this red detail. Okay, so now let's move over to the stones real quickly before we run out of time. And I hope you guys enjoy these classes. Just let me know if there's anything that you'd like to see, different improvements, if you're happy with them. So now we're going to change completely to a different color palette. So instead of using the greens, browns, even some light blues and aquamarines that we use for the pony, and we're going to come back to the pony or the horse. What I tend to do is work in a circular way, so I'm just going to let myself daydream a little bit about the pony. But I'm going to move to this other section, and we're going to start working with the stones. So this cluster of stones, you'd see that, well, we talked about before too, like when you take a photo, you could sort of quickly pass over the idea, just know that you've categorized this in our minds as a stone, okay? There's 1 stone, 2 stones, 3 stones, and then you might start looking more carefully and say, oh, there's also a white stone, a dark stone, and a gray stone with lines, with a center in the middle, and then you might begin to look even more closely, like I was doing yesterday, and noticing as you really, it's the other thing amazing about our smartphone technology is you can actually really zoom into some of the detail on even the tablecloth. So you know some of the painters that are super realism in that category or that genre of being identified as super realistic painters, they can capture all of that. It's almost like a photorealism, right? So that's not my preference. So for right now, we're just sort of doing this as a beginner's class as a rule, and just keeping it a little bit lighter. But knowing that if you wanted to go that direction, that's one way you could research super realism. Instead, what I'm going to do is move the drawing that I did of the rocks yesterday with a little bit of color. I already made a notation for the red tablecloth and some of the dark contrasts from yesterday. And I'm just going to pick up color now, adding to the pencil contrast. So I'm not going to erase that hatch mark, actually. Again, this is just my choice as an artist. Just going to be filling in where that is just a little bit of a darker shadowy spot on the stone. And then can you see how this gray, this gray actually has a little bit of a tint of green in it. So now, as a way to just accentuate that this, if you remember, that other stone behind it is definitely white. So that ultimately I'm going to blend that line so it softly conveys this idea of 3 separate objects. So right now it's still looking a little bit messy. That's okay, because that's the point of not hurrying, just taking our time. And so now I'm just doing some very light line work as part of that blending from the darker greenish gray marker to what is that first white line on the rock. And then similarly kind of coming around and bolstering that same idea here. Doing now a hash mark, so that's crossover to 45-degree angles. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm intentionally making this part pretty dark because the way that my eye is picking up that contrast, it's almost a midnight black, that shadow. But I do want there to be that underlying presence of the red still showing through. So again, I'll show you when we get to the more complete point here. So technique, technique, technique. Sometimes it gets thrown out the window when you have a can-do attitude, limited materials at home. So part of this is like, how do you create art from just materials that you have at home, right? So I don't really have a light gray, so I'm going to go back to pencil, and I'm going to actually just use a number 2 pencil and fold in some of that darker contrasting, and I'll go back to the object here in a minute. I'm just going to make do with materials that I've got, okay? Again, an excellent metaphor for the times that we're in. Just making do. It's part of that creative self that says, okay, I don't have everything I need right at my fingertips right now in the way that I would like, so I'm going to do the best I can with the materials that I have. So in just 1 minute here, I'll go back to the rock that we are drawing, or that I'm drawing. I wonder if are you guys drawing this with me? Right. Just observing. So again, I'm just doing like some now just gentle line work to get a sense of where these lines are, how to stretch my imagination to create a 3-dimensional object by using not only contrasting color but also diagramming for my eyes, almost like taking notes, like if you were in class and you were studying for an exam and you're taking notes. That's what I'm doing right now, is I'm just taking some visual notes so that when I do have some of the materials that I would prefer at my fingertips, I will have my class notes, so to speak, on where I'd like to use those tools. Okay, so I'm going to draw back here for a minute. And you can see where the pony is, and the rocks. And then let me pull back over here. So I'm still not quite identifying those. I'm actually going to even pull back a little bit further. And again, this is what I do in my studio when I'm working on a piece of art, is I take time to just really get an objective view, kind of a bird's eye view of how things are coming. Do I like the placement of things? And you can see how it's beginning just to take shape a little bit. And I guess between today and tomorrow, I'm going to look for some materials that are going to help me with that blending process on both the pony as well as with those stones. So for right now, part of the permission I give myself as an artist is to just make a few qualifying statements on that rock. And then, you guys, I'm just going to let that go for the moment after this so that I can move on. You know how it is when you're taking a test and there's like all those multiple choices, like A, B, C, D, and you're not sure the answer, and so you just move on, and then you come back. In principle, that's what I'm doing, is I'm just saying, okay, I'm taking notes, but I am going to come back to that. In the meantime, I want to develop just a little bit more of the architecture, this rock behind. I feel like I'm showing you the messy part of being an artist in a studio. Like the what happens in the real, before the finished artwork, before the ooh and the ahs and the, oh wow, that's amazing. That's okay. So that's what this is all about, is just learning to be patient with ourselves and comfortable with even just the messiness of trying to sort things out, right? So that's our get permission to do that. So I have to cut loose here in just a few minutes today. I'm so glad that you've been joining in with me, and open to your feedback and comments. I'll be working this afternoon now on adding color to the vase, and especially making sure to tune in tomorrow, where I'll do the light underlayment this afternoon, and you guys could do the same at home if you like. You can either take a screenshot, or you can see where there's posts below, and from that, the only other addition I would say is that if you want, if it's easier for you or you feel more comfortable, you can, with your pencil and a ruler, just lay a light grid pattern over the top of your drawing that you can easily erase without harming the drawing itself later. And that way that can give yourself a little more of a parameter of the shape and dimension of each of these details, which actually then would show up in the grid as if you're making a quilt or something, you know? So thank you guys so much for joining in. And again, I'm sorry that I have to cut short today our class, or I guess we're right at 10 o'clock already. So stay safe, be well, wash your hands, safe distance rules apply, and tune in tomorrow at the same time. And don't forget that my donation request this week is for sweetpawsrescue.com. You can check them out. It's an animal rescue unit here in Massachusetts. And we'll just sending good thoughts and intentions for all those people out there who are working so hard on behalf of our health and our wellness, people at the grocery stores and gas stations and healthcare workers. Just a big thank you for you guys for providing us with the opportunity to stay home and be safe. So, all right, take care, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions, even this afternoon. Feel free to post or comment, and we'll see you at 9 o'clock Eastern Time Friday.